Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to contribute on this motion. Mr. Speaker, Kajiado County Government, led by His Excellency the Governor, has a tendency of recycling officers, especially senior officers, Mr. Speaker. The motion before the House, Mr. Speaker, may not be about the Honorable Majority Leader. It's about this county, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I once happened to have worked under the said officer, Mr. Speaker. I was a Deputy Director in charge of compliance, Mr. Speaker, at the time when he was the Chief Officer of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I don't know who advised Governor Lenku on matters of appointment. Because how can you get someone out of one office because of issues raised by the public, issues pertaining the government operations, issues of incompetence, and then after 1 year or 2 years, the same officer is brought back to the same department, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are supposed to oversight the executive, and we cannot allow the garbage in, garbage out issue of recycling officers in government. Mr. Speaker, the issues of agencies in this county is a wake-up call. And I come from a very disadvantaged community called Keekonyokie, Mr. Speaker. For the last 7 years, Mr. Speaker, Keekonyokie have suffered a lot in this government. When this government took power, the Chief Officer in charge of Finance came from Keekonyokie. Director in charge of, Deputy Director General in charge of Revenue came from Keekonyokie. With several officers in Ifnis. The county HR came from Keekonyokie. The county registrar came from Keekonyokie then. But now, all of them, without replacement, have been ousted by the government. Mr. Speaker, allow me to be a bit emotional because I think I serve people who voted for this government, Mr. Speaker. Anytime there are changes, my community called Keekonyokie are dropped from government without any replacement, Mr. Speaker. This time, we are talking about changes in government. Those are not changes. That is recycling, Mr. Speaker. It is unfortunate that all of us are talking about changes. All of us are talking about revenues raising measures, Mr. Speaker. But how do you raise measures of revenue collection while bringing back people who never delivered? Mr. Speaker, we have sub-tribes that have taken over this county, Mr. Speaker. You find a community that has 5 directors serving revenue, while Keekonyokie, where I serve, have none. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether people don't know God or what is happening in this county. You cannot oust people from government without giving them even a share of replacement, Mr. Speaker. We are talking about an officer coming from a saturated sub-clan called Dallas. These are people, and I think majority leader comes from that place. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sholloi,
yes,
you continue to contribute. If I look at my records, we don't have any single community or board by the name Dallas. Unless you clarify with
where he comes from.
You are correct now.
Mr. Speaker, the current director in charge of the Deputy Director General in charge of revenue comes from Dallas. The Director in charge of land revenue comes from Dalale. The Director in charge of natural resources comes from Dalale. All of them in revenue. I'm not even mentioning about the union officers. Where do we take our people if a single sub-clan takes everything in this county? Mr. Speaker, I must speak for my people. And I think we've suffered enough. Yesterday, 2 of the junior officers, one of them was dropped, another one was demoted from the camp secretary. In the previous recruitment of CEOs, Mr. Speaker, Keekonyokie community were denied their share of CEO, Mr. Speaker. Today, some of the members here may be applauding of the changes, the minimal changes done to their senior officers in this government. Mr. Speaker, I comment about the issue of this specific officer. During the petition that was brought before this House, Mr. Speaker, one of the items captured by the petition was the issue of irregular payments of projects that were never done. One of them came from my ward, a very famous bridge called Naroburu Bridge that connects Keekonyokie Ward and Solitei Ward. A sum of 14.393 million was paid, and the person who signed that voucher is none other than this officer. Mr. Speaker, there is another road called Oloidian Road that just passed through my home. A sum of 10 million shillings was also paid, and the person who signed that voucher is none other than this officer. Mr. Speaker, we are speaking on this issue because we feel that if we don't speak to issues that are affecting our people, then when we speak, instead of us lamenting about the issue, I think this House must have a resolution that we will not engage officers that are adversely mentioned, officers under investigation by the various government agencies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the tenure of this officer,
what is out of order?
Under standing order number 30, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
He should not speak more than 5 minutes.
I am in agreement with you, however, maybe I was moved by the contribution of the contributor. So I agree with you. For the Keekonyokie, some of these things happen that regardless of you being in whichever position. So I will allow you 2 more minutes to conclude your contributions.
the Honorable Trump,
Was the other no member by that name? Please.
the Honorable Betway, is a beneficiary of this government because he said that the government comes from his work.
2 minutes to conclude.
So when I speak about the issues affecting my people, is raising on point of orders unnecessarily. Mr. Speaker, I know he's very happy because the person tormenting my people comes from his work. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, this House needs to have a resolution, a binding resolution, Mr. Speaker. We need fair distribution of officers, senior officers, holding serious offices, financing group. We cannot have a county government that has only officers strategically positioned to benefit a few quarters and leave the entire county lamenting. Mr. Speaker, Finance Department is a key department in this county. I remember, Mr. Speaker, during that time, the county employees, both executive and the county assembly employees, went for months without pay, under the watch of that chief officer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I remember it was a norm for this county that you could not found, and in fact, some of the honorable members bear me witness because they used to work in that department or in this county, that you cannot find that officer in office. And when you find that person in office, he cannot address any issue. The issue of accumulated wage bill, the issue of the accrued pending bills began during his tenure, Mr. Speaker.
Your time is up, Sholloi.
Mr. Speaker, as I wrap up, I beg the county assembly, because most of them are insinuating that the move of this motion is doing this because of local politics. I believe finance affects more than that. Mr. Speaker, when we begin having issues of banks not releasing money in time because of incompetency, because of a person who cannot be able to inspire confidence in other entities, Mr. Speaker, then we have a problem. I beg this House, Mr. Speaker, today that we pass a resolution that we will not engage that officer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And